Welcome to Learning Module 2. Today we'll show you user roles in Kelvin, how to create an admin user and custom user groups, and how to test the Kelvin extension. Okay, so before we can talk about the tools and reports available to system admins, we wanted to take a moment to explain the various user roles in your Kelvin site. You'll see a list here of these user roles, and if you've been with us for a couple of years or maybe even a few months, you probably recognize system admins, district admins, school admins, teachers, and students. But let's take a moment to define each of those roles, starting with the system admins. So system admins have the highest level of access, and they can change user roles and permissions. This should technically only be a small handful of people at your district. Typically, it's going to be your project owner or someone with decision-making rights. It could also include your tech leads or IT support, folks that manage your SIS data and might be able to help you troubleshoot user issues within your Kelvin system or within your data management. Next, we have district admins, and they can see district-wide data, so across any of the schools affiliated with your district, but they're not going to be able to change user roles and permissions like the system admin can. And this role is most applicable or appropriate for directors, superintendents, assistant superintendents, and in some cases, the district admin might also be a system admin, although that's not always the case. So let's look at school admins. So school admins, or we might even call these school staff as they're imported, can see school-wide data for their site. And this role is most appropriate for principals, assistant principals, counselors, or other admins at your site that are non-instructional. And they can also be affiliated to multiple sites or schools. So if you have a counselor or social worker that services multiple schools in your district, we can help you set them up at different sites as well. Next, we have teachers. So teachers can see data for students that are enrolled to them only. They also do not have access to edit or update user roles in the system or any permissions. And if you grant them permission, they can create pulses for those students that are enrolled to them only. Okay, last but not least, we have the user role of students. Now, students don't see a launchpad like a staff or system admin user would see. And typically, students' interaction with Pulse is through the extension or that pop-up, which is Boogie the dog. But if they did happen to find pulse.kelvin.education or they're directed there intentionally, they will not see the launchpad. They'll see something like the next screen here. They'll get prompted to sign in with Google, which should be using their school email address. And then if they successfully sign in with their school email, they'll get one of two options. So they'll see the first option, hi there, your school wants to hear from you. So this is about the same as what they would see if they clicked on Boogie the dog. And that's if an open pulse is live and they're a participant, they can start taking that pulse. Or they'll get a message saying that they're all finished, which means they've already taken the pulse and submitted responses, or there are no live pulses for which they are a participant. So most users in Kelvin will be and should be imported from your student information system each night. And this will automatically create accounts for most school admins, teachers, and it's how we import your enrollment, rostering, and sometimes subgroups or programs like ELL, SPED, free reduced lunch. But there may be times that you want to add an admin account for folks who are not being imported. So a common case for this might be a site admin like a principal or a counselor. And we want to show you how you can do that and manage your users in the system. So how do you go about doing that? First, we're going to need to go to your Pulse site. So let's go ahead and click over into our demo site here. And once you're in your Pulse Launchpad, that's at pulse.kelvin.education, you're going to click on this avatar at the top right corner and then click into the settings link. So this settings link will give you your settings page where most of your permissions and settings and reports that only system admins can see. You'll notice at the top here, we have a list of system admins for this site. It'll vary by your site or district, depending on how you've set that up. Below, you'll see a group of links and permission settings that you'll have access to as a system admin. And then below that, on the bottom, you'll notice this manage your personal notifications. So you can either check or uncheck to receive Pulse email reminders before a scheduled Pulse, getting Pulse email reports after a Pulse has closed, and then also to be notified when students request assistance, which is one of our special configurations for student Pulses. But for now, we wanted to show you how to add a new admin user. So let's come back up to the top. You'll notice this link here, manage users. I'm going to go ahead and click here to add an admin that hasn't been imported. So for this example, let's say I have a new principal at Boogie Middle School. And the first thing I'm going to want to do is check to see if that person is being imported. And the best way to do that in this search bar right here at the top, I would throw in their admin email, their school email that they'll be using. And I hit that enter button and notice that this user, it does not exist, has not been imported. I could also search by a first name, and I notice that's not the user I'm looking for. So I can go ahead and add them by clicking this plus new admin user button at the top. So I'm just going to go ahead and put this user's details in here, paste in their email. I'm going to show that they are a principal. And what's really important in this roles is to make sure that you designate the appropriate role for that user. I had mentioned that this is a new principal for Boogie Middle School, so I am going to select from the dropdown school staff at Boogie Middle. I had mentioned earlier you can assign staff users to multiple sites if you'd like, but this is just the principal at Boogie Middle School, so that's the only site I'm going to select, which will give that person access to all user data at their own site. You'll notice this import from Clever is unchecked. If it was checked, that would be if we were importing either from your SIS through Clever or an Aries direct API, and we also can import your data using an SFTP site. So you're going to leave that unchecked because we are adding them manually. I'm going to go ahead and click Save. And one thing to note when you manually add an admin user is that you also need to manage them manually. So if they leave that school or they leave your district, you'll need to come back and deactivate them. So I'm just going to go ahead and search for Jack, who I just added. You'll notice this unlink button or icon next to it shows me that they're not being imported in. If I click on Jack, I can come up here at the top, ... and click deactivate. Let's just say that this user took along maybe a 6-month leave of absence, a personal leave, and I just want to deactivate them for that time. I can come back and reactivate them after the 6 months, and you'll notice this red field here that tells me to reactivate. So it's very simple to manually manage. However, we want to make sure that most of your users are being imported so that we're getting the most up-to-date information, especially if you have a large district. It can be pretty onerous to be manually managing multiple users at different sites. So that's pretty straightforward how you'll add your admin. Now it's your turn. Go to your settings menu and click Manage Users. Click plus New Admin User. Fill in all the required fields and make sure to assign a role to the user. Show you next how to create your custom groups. Let's see some use cases. I'm going to come back to our settings and take us back to our settings page where you see the links. So you'll notice we just did the manage users. We're going to go into manage groups. And you're going to see a lot of different groups here. The ones that have a lock displayed on them are already being imported, or they're set up in our system, so you cannot edit those. But you'll notice that we have ones with no lock. So this advisory teachers, at risk, which would be students. So these are staff and student custom groups. So let's say that we want to send out a pulse to all school staff and teachers in the district, but I only want to share the results with the district admins and the principals at each participating school. And I don't have a principal group set up for the schools that I want to share with, so I'm going to go ahead and create one. You'll see this plus new group button at the top. And you'll notice the drop-down gives you either a student group or a staff group. So we're going to create our staff group. And then you're going to go ahead and name your group. So I'm going to call my group School Principals. And I'm just going to give a description to let me know these are the middle school principals. And click save. You could change the color if you want. I'm just going to leave the default. And now I can add my staff. Well, I just added Jack to my admin users. So if I paste in his email again, I can find Jack easily and add Jack to this list. I can add other users as well. So let's just say I have these 3 principals that I want to add to our middle school principals group. You can always come back to this group and remove a user or add more by clicking the Add Staff button here. I can also rename the group, edit the name later if I need to. So now I've added them. I want to show you for the use case of just sharing results with this group of middle school principals. So I'm going over to one of my edit Pulse settings. So if you're used to using Pulse, you'll be familiar with this page as you're creating a Pulse. If you wanted to come back and edit, you can do that. But on this info page, you have this, who do you want to share results with? And I mentioned earlier, I just want to share with district admins and not teachers. Maybe I want to just add my school principals. Oops, let me refresh so it gets my new group in here. There it is. Now I see my school principals with 3 principals in there. I've added them from the drop down and then I can save my changes. So now they'll be able to receive results as well as district admins. Let's pause here for a knowledge check. From your settings menu, select Manage Groups. Click plus New Group and choose either a student or a staff group. Add participants to your custom group. Today we're going to show you how you can create an extension test so that you can make sure that students are seeing Boogie. So from your Launchpad, you're going to go up to the settings, this top right avatar in the corner, and click down the settings drop down. And from here, we're going to create a group. So you'll go to this groups link and we're going to create a new group. So click this green plus new group, a new student group. And I'm going to call mine extension test. You can call it whatever you want, but for mine, that's what I'm going to call it. And then from there, you're going to add students. And what you'll need to do is choose a student that you can impersonate so that you'll be able to log in as on their Chromebook. Or if it's a student that you can pull aside to do the test with in person, you can do that as well. So when you click on the users, you'll see a list. Usually it's going to be their email. So I'm just going to go ahead and randomly pick one, Adam Donnelly. And it looks like it's adding Ryan. Okay. So from here, we're going to go back to our Launchpad. And now we need to create a pulse to test the extension with. So I'm going to click Pulses and click the plus new pulse and create a student pulse. I'm going to call it extension test, just like my group. And when I select students from my groups, I should now see extension test in my list as I'm scrolling through. There it is. And we'll save. I'm going to remove teachers and district admins, and I will turn off comments and click next. So you can either create your own custom question or pick something from the bank. Today I'm just going to pick a district fun question or two. Okay, what's your favorite food? I'll click add. What's your favorite ice cream? Click add. Go ahead and click next. And now we're going to schedule it to run this test today. If you don't want to run it on the same day, you can set the schedule for whatever day you want to test it. But I'm going to do it today and just keep it open for today only. Click Create Schedule, and the last step is to make sure you click Finish Setup. When you click that, now when you go back to your Launchpad, you should see the extension test. I see one participant because it's just pulling from that custom group that I created, the extension test, and I can click into the Pulse itself to see that that student was added. And then once you have been able to log in as the student on a Chromebook, what you should see if you go to any web page is Boogie pops up if you're signed in as that student. So if you were to click on Boogie, you would see your school wants to hear from you. Go ahead and click it and go through and answer the questions. For this demo, I'm going to go ahead and do the actual pulse that we're testing. And I will answer those questions and make sure that I hit submit, the green button. It should tell you, thank you, you're all finished. And then from there, you can go back and check your participation. So go back to your Launchpad. We'll click Launchpad at the top. And now you can see we have 100% participation. It did record the response, so the extension works. The student's able to see Boogie, and we were able to submit and record their response. So that's it for running an extension test. The other thing that you want to keep in mind is you will need system admin access to create a custom group, and you will need some admin access at your school site to be able to impersonate the student that you want to test as. I hope that helps, and have a great day. Let's pause here for a knowledge check. First, create a custom student group so you can do an extension test. Add a student that you are able to impersonate on a Chromebook, or alternatively, you can pull that student aside to have them test it for you. Create a test pulse for only your extension test group. Are you ready? Let's go. Congratulations on completing Module 2. Today we defined Kelvin user roles, you learned how to create admin users and custom user groups, and you also ran an extension test. If you still have any questions about the content in this learning module, you can submit a ticket to hello@kelvin.education or reach out to your Kelvin CSM.